A suffocating gray sky presses down on Los Angeles. The air is thick, not with smog, but with the collective tension of 2,000 people packed into a converted soundstage. This is not a film premiere. There are no red carpets, no flashes of adoration. There are only black suits, bowed heads, and eyes shifting nervously, hiding secrets. Harry Cohn, the co-founder, president, and absolute monster of Columbia Pictures, lies in that coffin. They call this the largest funeral in Hollywood history. But do not be mistaken, these people did not come to mourn. They came to verify. Comedian Red Skelton, standing amidst the suffocating crowd, leans over and whispers a joke. It is perhaps the cruelest, most honest punchline in industry history, a line that strips the mask off Tinseltown. It proves what Harry always said: give the public what they want, and they'll come out for it. And what the public wants today is to confirm that Harry Cohn is truly dead, that the beast has stopped breathing, that the reign of terror is finally over. But how did a penniless boy from the slums of New York rise to cast such a long, terrifying shadow over the brightest stars in the world? How did he build an empire on a foundation of blood, lust, and handshakes with the mob? Welcome to Hollywood Mysteries. Today, we dissect the empire of the devil. Harry Cohn was not born into silk. He was born into the filth of the bottom. The 23rd of July, 1891, Manhattan, the Lower East Side, a cramped tenement reeking of sweat and desperation. His father was a tailor, his mother, an immigrant. Harry quit school at 14. He didn't study film, he studied survival. He hawked furs, punched streetcar tickets, and most importantly, he was a pool hustler. On the green felt of the pool table, he learned to read human greed, to manipulate weakness, and to crush an opponent before they even realized the game had started. In 1919, alongside his brother Jack and a friend, Harry founded the precursor to Columbia, CBC Film Sales. The Hollywood elite sneered at him. They spat on his ambition. They called CBC corned beef and cabbage the cheap, smelly food of the working class. It was a humiliation. Twist 1, the transfusion. But humiliation was the fuel for Harry's engine of hatred. He vowed to erase that cheap name. He rebranded the studio as Columbia Pictures, taking the proud image of the Lady of Liberty herself. But where does a man with holes in his pockets find the cash to transform from a beggar into a king? Whispers circulated through the dark alleys of the industry, the mafia. Harry never confirmed it, but he never denied it either. Murky cash flows from mob bosses in New York and Chicago pumped into Columbia's veins, turning it from a starving corpse into a heavyweight contender. He had sold his soul to the devil with the very first brick. He famously bragged, "I built Columbia with spit, wire, and these fists. I stole, cheated, and beat people's brains out to get here." That wasn't a metaphor. That was a confession. By the 1,930 seconds and 40 seconds, Columbia had risen. Frank Capra's films were winning Oscars. It Happened One Night swept the Academy Awards. But behind the glittering gold of the statues was a concentration camp run by Harry Cohn. He christened himself White Fang. The industry called him King Cohn. After a visit to Italy in 1933, Harry found the idol of his life, Benito Mussolini. He modeled his office after the fascist dictators. A massive desk sat atop a raised platform, ensuring that anyone who entered had to look up at him like a peasant looking at a god. He designed the room so that visitors had to walk a long, lonely distance from the door to his desk, allowing fear to gnaw at them with every step. But Harry's brutality wasn't just vocal. It was predatory. He turned Columbia into his private harem. Film historian Neil Gabler bluntly labeled Harry Cohn the most notorious and insatiable sexual predator of the Golden Age. The casting couch system under Harry Cohn was industrialized. He had a private room adjoining his executive suite. He bugged the studio. Microphones were hidden in actresses' dressing rooms and on sound stages. He listened to their whispers, their tears, their curses. It was a sick, Orwellian surveillance state. He had a secret door leading directly into the female dressing rooms. Jean Arthur, the sparkling star of Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, revealed a horror story that few dared to speak of. Harry could emerge from the darkness at any moment to attack. Twist 2. The killer instinct of Jean Arthur. The terror was so absolute that it drove Jean Arthur to the brink of madness. She confided later that she had decided to do the unthinkable. She brought a loaded gun onto the lot. For 3 hours, one of America's sweethearts paced the shadows of the studio, waiting for Harry, fully intending to put a bullet in his head. In the end, she didn't pull the trigger. She chose to walk away, abandoning a glittering career to save her last shred of humanity. The fact that an A-list star contemplated murder just to escape her boss reveals the true, toxic depth of Harry Cohn's soul. Harry Cohn didn't just want to own bodies. He wanted to own souls and rewrite identities. Look at Rita Hayworth. Before she was the love goddess, she was Margarita Cancino, a dancer of Spanish descent. Harry Cohn saw the dollar signs, but he hated her heritage. He ordered painful electrolysis to rip out her hairline and raise it. He dyed her raven hair red. He changed her name. He killed Margarita to manufacture Rita. When Rita Hayworth eloped with Orson Welles, Harry exploded. Not out of romantic jealousy, but because he felt his property was being used by someone else. He had a method for judging films that was famously grotesque. The fanny test. If my fanny squirms in the chair, it's bad. If my fanny doesn't squirm, it's good. Crude, vulgar, but effective. He was a cinematic genius with the soul of a butcher. But the pinnacle of his cruelty, the darkest drama of Harry Cohn's life, was the 1957 saga involving Kim Novak and Sammy Davis Jr. Kim Novak was Harry's newest investment, the successor to Rita Hayworth. She possessed an ethereal, platinum beauty. Harry had poured a fortune into molding her. And then, the unthinkable news broke. Kim Novak was secretly dating Sammy Davis Jr. In the segregated America of the 1950 seconds, a romance between a white-screen goddess and a black entertainer was a death sentence for box office receipts. To Harry, this wasn't love. It was treason. His asset was being tarnished. The rage was so intense, it triggered his first heart attack in September 1957. But even from his hospital bed, the monster did not rest. Twist 3. The hit order. Harry Cohn called in his old friends from the underworld. Mickey Cohen, the most infamous mob boss in Los Angeles, delivered a message to Sammy Davis Jr. on Harry's behalf. It wasn't a warning. It was a promise of mutilation. If you don't stop seeing Kim Novak immediately, we will break both your legs. We will gouge out your other eye, and we will bury you in a hole. Sammy Davis Jr. had already lost one eye in a car accident. The threat to blind him completely was pure, distilled cruelty. The tragic result, Sammy Davis Jr., terrified for his life, capitulated. In a desperate act of survival, mere weeks later in January 1958, Sammy entered into a sham marriage with Lori White, a black dancer, to kill the rumors. The wedding night was a descent into hell. Sammy drank himself blind. He screamed in anguish. In a fit of drunken, impotent rage against the system, he reportedly tried to strangle his new bride. "Why won't they let me live my life?" he sobbed. Harry Cohn had won. He used the mafia to shatter a romance and humiliate two human beings, all to protect his quarterly earnings. The victory over Sammy Davis Jr. and Kim Novak was Harry Cohn's final triumph, but the cost was his own heart. In February 1958, Harry went to the Arizona Biltmore to recover. On his pinky finger, he wore a ruby ring identical to one worn by mobster Johnny Roselli. Was it a talisman, or a mark of ownership by the underworld? On the night of February 27th, after dinner, the tyrant's heart finally gave out. He died in an ambulance, gasping for air. The news spread like wildfire. At rival studios, corks popped. Champagne flowed. Producer Daryl Zanuck famously remarked, "His death is good for Hollywood." What did Harry Cohn leave behind? 45 Academy Awards. Masterpieces like It Happened One Night, From Here to Eternity, On the Waterfront. He created the most beautiful art from the ugliest behavior. It is the darkest paradox of cinema. But as the coffin was lowered, no one wept for the man inside. He was the embodiment of the old Hollywood, a place where power was absolute, women were inventory, and art was nourished by fear. Harry Cohn is dead, but his shadow, the culture of abuse, the transactional nature of bodies, the ruthlessness of capitalism, was it truly buried with him? Or did it simply change its face? As Red Skelton said, they came to the funeral to make sure he was dead. But perhaps, deep down, they were still afraid. Afraid that on a quiet night, that secret door in the dressing room would creak open one last time, and the ghost of Harry Cohn would step out from the dark.